Honestly, I don't really care what other people have to say. Like, some people will say like, you should have stayed with them no matter what. Like, that's what you agreed to when you married somebody. Well, unconditional love is not unconditional tolerance. You do not have to stay in this relationship or this marriage for the sake of, oh, I don't want to deal with the stigma of divorce. I don't want people to look at me a certain way, because that's what happens too. Like, when you are in a relationship with somebody like that too, like, you are looked at as if you are the problem, because the addict a lot of the times will triangulate you between other family members so that you're pitted against each other arguing, so you can't address what's going on with them. And they do it a lot of the time unknowingly, but it's still manipulation. And it's still not okay. I can't tell you how many times I was blamed for my ex's struggles because I was trying to save him when he didn't want to be saved. Ignore the mess in the background. I have a 3-year-old and he wanted to jump on the couch earlier. So anyway, I wanted to talk about what it's like being in a healthy relationship now with the current partner that I have versus having to overcome a lot of the trauma that unknowingly my ex inflicted on me because he struggles with the disease of addiction, and how that's kind of presented in my current relationship, and the way that I've had to really truly work on myself and heal a lot of that past anxiety, trust issues and whatnot that kind of comes with that disease, struggling to love somebody through that. And the biggest thing that I want to say right now is that you cannot love somebody sober. You can't. You cannot love somebody into sobriety. They have to make that decision for themselves. And if ultimately they continue to choose those things over you and the safety of you and your children, you have to make a decision for yourself. You can either stay with them, try to work through things, but I would not recommend staying if they're not willing to go get help. Okay, if you're struggling in that position right now and they literally will say, hey, I'm gonna go do this, I'm gonna go do that, I'm gonna go to a meeting or whatever, but they never go and they never actually put action forward to going and getting sober, it's time to question whether or not you need to leave, because I'm telling you, it is so much brighter on the other side. And I hate to say that because I know a lot of people struggle with addiction, and a lot of people ultimately lose access to their loved ones because of that. Unfortunately, that's something that I had to choose for myself, and it was the hardest decision I ever had to make. Now that I'm on the other side of it, I just kind of wanted to talk about this because I can't tell you like how many times like videos would pop up on my FYP or something, and I would be like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm struggling with. And it was somebody sharing like, hey, like I'm on the other side of it now, like things are so good. And that really gave me hope when I was in the thick of it, where I felt so stuck because I was still holding on to hope. Really went through a couple of rough months dealing with everything. And now that my divorce is finalized in a relationship with a fantastic man, I can look back on that where like, no, in the moment, it felt like I was moving through mud because of how horrible my mental state was at that period, that now I just want to give you some hope that like, if you do need to make that decision and choose yourself, ultimately there will be somebody on the other side. Everyone's gonna have their issues, everyone's gonna have their problems. Like, that's just the fact of life. But if you continue to stay with somebody who refuses to get better or even put the effort in to get better and drags you in the dirt along with them, sometimes you have to cut the cord and choose yourself, babe. And it's gonna be the most painful thing you've ever done. I just wanna give you some hope right now in that, like, yes, it's gonna suck. It's gonna suck as you financially get yourself back on your feet. It's gonna suck in so many different ways, but ultimately the happiness that I feel today, the stability that I feel is priceless, okay? Freaking priceless. I can't tell you how many days and nights that I was up trying to track him with my phone and figure out where he was and intercept a package or whatever I was doing. Like, it was driving me nuts, you guys. I could not focus on anything to positively move myself forward in life, whether that was not working out because I was so sad, or not professionally investing in myself, like going back to school. I was so focused on their journey of trying to get them better that I couldn't make myself better. What I realized, and honestly I think gave me the strength to leave, was having my son, because I can't tell you how many times my ex would promise, I'm gonna get better for him, I'm gonna get better for him, I'm gonna get better for him, because people are like, well, why would you have a kid with him? For a lot of women, a lot of people that are in relationships with people that struggle with addictions, is like, you hold on to that hope. And for me especially, I have hope in other human beings, and I have hope in their capacity to change and be better people and make the right decision. But it had such a hold on him that I realized that if I couldn't leave for the sake of my child, then I would never leave, and I would be miserable in this relationship. And I can't tell you how many times, like, if relapse is part of what you struggle with your significant other, every time that happens and they break your trust and they lie again after you know that they've relapsed, there's no intimacy, there's no communication, there's just almost a hatred, not even like of not the person, but the disease, because you know it's the disease, but the person's making the decisions. I don't know how else to explain it. I can't tell you how freeing it is when you finally choose yourself. And you're never gonna know what's your breaking point. I thought that I would know, but I had multiple breaking points, I believe. And I won't go into detail about a lot of those, but I remember a situation happened and I was just like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not going back and forth anymore. I'm done. Like, this is where I draw the line, and I choose better for myself. And I don't care what it takes, what I have to do in order to get myself and my son stable and safe, but I'm gonna do it. And if that's the choice that you're facing right now, as your loved one continues to drag you financially, physically even, which my ex did not struggle with, he didn't ever lay hands on me. A lot of the time, DV and addiction can play hand in hand. If that's something that you're dealing with at home, babe, you gotta leave. And if anybody has not told you today, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you're struggling with this. I'm so sorry that your loved one is struggling with this. I know how hard it is. I know the judgment that you get from the outside looking in. Why hasn't she left yet? Why hasn't she done this? Why hasn't she done that? She should do this. She should do that. She shouldn't allow visitation because da 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 da. Forget, it's just noise. It's all just noise. I'm just here to say I'm sorry. But it's time to pull your big girl panties up and freaking leave, girl, before you end up down here with them, okay? And honestly, I don't really care what other people have to say. Like, some people will say, like, you should have stayed with them no matter what. Like, that's what you agreed to when you married somebody. Well, unconditional love is not unconditional tolerance. You do not have to stay in this relationship or this marriage for the sake of, oh, I don't want to deal with the stigma of divorce. I don't want people to look at me a certain way, because that's what happens too. Like, you are in a relationship with somebody like that too. Like, you are looked at as if you are the problem, because the addict a lot of the times will triangulate you between other family members so that you're pitted against each other arguing, so you can't address what's going on with them. And they do it a lot of the time unknowingly, but it's still manipulation. And it's still not okay. I can't tell you how many times I was blamed for my ex's struggles because I was trying to save him when he didn't want to be saved. Ultimately, like, somebody has to hit their rock bottom, or another rock bottom and another rock bottom until it clicks, or they might hit that final rock bottom, but that's not within your control, and you cannot stop somebody doing that to themselves. And that's the hardest thing for me, has been the hardest thing for me, is to give up that control factor. Surrender to the unknown. Surrender to, if they want to do it, but you don't have to allow it in your home. You don't have to allow it in your life, in your bubble, around your kids. That's not healthy behavior, and you don't deserve to be manipulated or lied to, having things in your house that you don't agree to. I just want to say, like, being in the relationship that I am now has opened my eyes in so many different ways to, I did not deserve any of that treatment whatsoever. And now that I'm with somebody that is trustworthy, is there when I need him to be, is there when I call, I'm not trying to find, like, just all these other things that, like, I appreciate him that much more because I'm not dealing with that. And that's the other thing too, is like, people don't realize that, like, addiction, like, it doesn't start out most of the time like super bad. There's levels to it, and a lot of the time there's like lying involved in the beginning, because I was never exposed to addiction and substance abuse. I had never been around it growing up. I didn't know the signs. So it took me a while personally to identify what was going on at home. That started the process of, like, okay, what do I do? And then them saying, oh, like, I'm not gonna do it anymore. I'm not gonna do it anymore, over and over again. And you wanna believe the person that you're with, but that can only carry on so long without any actual pursuit of getting that help, okay? So give yourself in your head a time limit. They have until this date to go do this, or I'm done. Stop lingering in it out of hope and listening to what they're saying, those false promises, okay? Those are false promises, by the way, which is a form of manipulation, okay? Especially if they don't have the intent of actually going to get help. Addiction is also incredibly nuanced, because I believe at some point it is a choice whether you choose to go get that help to get better, or you choose to stay in it. And, like, yes, people will argue, like, oh, like, it's not in their control whatsoever. I disagree to a certain extent, especially when, like, kids come into play and whatnot. But, like, at the same time, I'm talking from a way of, like, okay, you don't have to put up with this. They can struggle with this, but also, like, trying not to shame either, even though I have conflicting feelings about it, because I was put through so many different things and exposed to so many different things that I didn't need to be exposed to because of this. But also knowing that trying to separate the person from the disease is an incredibly hard thing to do, because, you know, especially if you're with somebody that was amazing before addiction became so prevalent in their lives, it's so hard to, like, know that that's their capability. But if they're not choosing that, then you got to choose you. Another important thing I want to talk about is that you do not have to be silent to try and keep somebody safe that is not keeping you safe, okay? Because addiction thrives in darkness, you understand? It thrives in darkness when it can stay silent and it can hide. As soon as you start telling friends and family what's really going on at home, that addiction is forced into a corner and is clawing for survival, okay? But you not saying anything, trying to keep everything at home so that you could present this perfect package looking family to everyone else when there's really other things going on at home, doesn't serve anybody. It serves the addiction. Not you, not your family, not your loved one, okay? Because as soon as you stop enabling somebody, you stop giving them money, stop giving them a roof over their head, they're forced to choose, hey, I'm losing all these things in my life, I need to get better. And also, why do you have to talk about it on social media? Blah, 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 blah. Because one, I've been super public about a lot of my life struggles and whatnot. And this one is probably the most insurmountable life struggle that I've been through thus far. And also, unfortunately, even from like all the messages and comments, like a lot of people aren't comfortable commenting. So they'll message me saying, hey, like you sharing this has helped me decide to leave, or has helped me point my loved one which direction to go, whether or not, you know, rehab or meetings or whatever. But staying silent helps nobody. It only keeps the addiction going longer, and they'll get worse and worse and worse as you try and protect them from themselves, okay? They'll make bad decisions driving, they'll do all these different things, and you can't protect them. You can't. And as you try and protect them, you will also drag yourself down. You will. And it sucks. And a lot of the time we do things for our loved ones out of love and out of wanting to protect them and shield them, but sometimes that's the worst thing you can do. Is you can love somebody into the grave. This is why I need you guys to understand. If you continue to supply and enable, you can love them into the grave. The best thing that you can do is cut contact, remove them from your home if you can, and say, hey, like this is your choice. You can either go into this facility right here and get some help, or we're done. That's the best and only advice that I have. And if they decide still at that point to not get help or not even make that attempt, because even if you do that too, that doesn't mean that they're doing that for themselves. They're doing it so they don't lose you in the moment. So that's not even guaranteed either. And that's what sucks so bad. You know, ultimately, people are going to judge you no matter what. If you stay with that person, if you leave that person, if that person doesn't go get help, they'll blame you. Okay, this is not something that I discuss with my child, and I hope to one day have a really good co-parenting relationship with my ex once he's in a much better place. But it's such a struggle too when you share a child with somebody who, like, my ex is not a bad guy. In fact, he has an incredibly kind heart, and I am not making excuses for him, and I know that that guy is in there. But it's really hard. It's really hard to trust your most precious gift with somebody that can't even make the right decisions for themselves. And I think that's what I've struggled with the most, dealing with all of this. And I have such, if this is something that you're struggling with and trying to love somebody through, whether it's your significant other, a brother, a sister, a mom, a dad, a cousin, a best friend that keeps using you to try to further their addiction, I just want to give you the biggest freaking hug. Say, I'm so sorry, but you need to stop enabling them. You need to choose yourself, and you need to put the effort that you've been putting into trying to maintain their sobriety for them back into yourself. Once you start doing that, you'll start to feel so much better. Let go of the control. You can't control addiction. You didn't cause it. You can't control it. I'm just surrounding you with love and strength right now as I'm encouraging you to make the right decision for yourself if they're not ready to make the right decision for themselves.